2 weeks before I broke up with my partner, I was riding in a knockoff Greyhound through the scenic suburbs of New Jersey. We'd been together for 4 months, and this was my first real time away from them. I remember staring out the window and suddenly feeling so small. All my life, I'd had what I jokingly described as an annoyingly high self-esteem. But in that moment, I felt so tiny, so worthless, and so alone. I had supportive friends and a supportive therapist, and I still felt this way. How could that be? Because nobody talks about trans-masculine people and intimate partner violence. We don't have national conversations about it. We don't have conversations about it within the LGBTQ+ community, and we don't even talk about it in trans-masculine spaces. I remember opening incognito windows multiple times a day, Googling for support groups, statistics, books, essays, movies, YouTube videos, forum posts, anything to let me know that somebody else had been there too, and finding almost nothing. I do say almost. There are some resources out there, but they're limited. When it comes to support groups, a lot of smaller towns might have meetings for cisgender women, and in more progressive towns, they will explicitly state that trans women are welcome too. However, whether or not trans men are welcome is ambiguous. I remember in my town, I was able to find a support group for women and a support group for men who were perpetrators of violence, but I couldn't find any groups for men who had experienced violence, trans or cis. There was nothing. So why don't we talk about it? Domestic violence is a taboo, regardless of the genders of the survivor and the perpetrator. In the rare instances when we do decide to broach the uncomfortable topic, we usually focus on one narrative. Cisgender heterosexual women are attacked by cisgender heterosexual men. If you are a male survivor, you may feel embarrassed to talk about it. You may fear being perceived as weak or less masculine. This fear can be exacerbated if you're a cis queer man, since society already views your sexuality as feminine. And if you're a trans man, this fear expands and folds into a flexagon of doubts, shame, and dysphoria. Not only do we fear being seen as less masculine, we fear not being seen as men at all. Talking about our experiences with domestic violence gives the world and ourselves a chance to invalidate our identities as men. Additionally, we don't talk about trans men and intimate partner violence because as a nation, we hardly talk about trans men at all. There are way fewer openly trans men in the public eye than there are trans women. And if we're not talking about trans men at all, of course we're not going to talk about them being abused. The lack of conversation leads to the lack of resources. We can't solve a problem we don't know about, and we can't help a community we can't see. But how common is domestic abuse against men? Is this just a niche problem? Unfortunately, it happens all the time. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 20 people are physically assaulted by a domestic partner per minute in the United States. That adds up to 10 million people per year, more than the entire population of New York City. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will experience some form of physical violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime. Research compiled by the Williams Institute suggests that almost 30% of gay men experience intimate partner violence. And of course, that number may actually be higher due to underreporting. Though the amount of research regarding trans people is limited, it is estimated that anywhere from 30 to 51% of trans people experience intimate partner violence. And according to Forge, trans men are actually slightly more likely than trans women to encounter dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. And when we try to access help for these problems, we often run into barriers. 44% of LGBTQ+ survivors who sought assistance from a shelter or a government program were denied. When asked why, 71% said they were turned away because of their gender identity. This is not a niche problem. So what can we do to solve it? Both for survivors and their allies, we can educate ourselves. For online resources, Barking, Dagenham, and PCT have a great guide called Domestic Violence, a Resource for Trans People, which talks about the barriers trans people specifically face in these types of relationships. The Power and Control Wheel for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender relationships is a great tool for learning the signs of an abusive partner. Loveisrespect.org has an online quiz that can help you determine if you or a friend is in an abusive relationship. And Forge has a great guide on finding an affirming therapist. This list is by no means exhaustive. If you know of any other resources, please leave them in the comments below. For in-person support, the Los Angeles LGBT Center has STOP, one of the nation's most comprehensive programs offering extensive support for LGBTQ+ survivors of intimate partner violence. And if you don't live in Los Angeles, the center offers online resources as well. I would also recommend researching an LGBT center near you, or calling a local Planned Parenthood and seeing if they either offer support or have referrals. They might not have resources specific to trans trans men, but they could still be quite helpful. If you're a survivor and you don't have an LGBT center in your area or any form of support near you, you can check out the FTM subreddit. It's a space where trans men from all over the world can talk about anything. If you use the search function, you can find a few past threads about trans men and intimate partner violence, or you can start a thread of your own if you want to share and connect. If you're an ally, after reading the resources and educating yourself, you can take more active steps. If you think your friend might be in an abusive relationship, in addition to passing along these resources, here's a few ways you can support them. First, keep an eye on your friends. All of your friends, actually, transgender or not. How do they talk about their relationship? Do they seem happy? Do they seem like they can make decisions without the influence of their partner? Are any of their behaviors radically different from how they were before they started dating this person? Is their partner constantly calling or texting them and demanding to know where they are? These are a few red flags. Next, and in my opinion, the best thing you can do is listen to your friend and don't tell them what to do. Sometimes people in abusive relationships make unhealthy choices and go through weird mental hoops for their partners. As a friend, this can be so frustrating to just sit and watch, but people in abusive relationships often feel so powerless. It's important to empower their agency. And if you don't think you know someone who is in this kind of situation, you can still be an ally. In addition to educating yourself, you can educate your community. One thing you can do, for instance, is hang up posters like this in your school or workplace. I personally saw this one in the bathroom at my job, and while it's not what convinced me to leave my partner, it did cause me to start asking questions. Spreading awareness is crucial. Like I said before, we can't solve a problem we don't know about. And lastly, I just want to say, if you're someone who's been through it or is going through it, please know that as much as it may feel like it, you are not alone. You are not the only person who's experienced this, and there are people who truly, sincerely, and fully love you who want you to be safe and happy. It's okay if you're not ready to get out now, and it's okay if it takes you more than one try. It takes the average survivor 7 times to leave their abusive partner. There is no room for violence in love, and to quote actor Terry Crews, it's impossible to love someone and control them at the same time. Sometimes as trans people, it can be easy to feel unlovable, but know that you are lovable. You are capable of finding a partner who loves you exactly as you are and loves you as an equal. And please know that you are not to blame for your current situation, and your experiences do not make you weak, and they do not determine your gender. Abusers get no say in who you are. You got this, and you will get through to the other side. I promise.